Hi Daniel and Christian, it's me, Miss Stacy. I wanted to show you a little bit about how I take notes for when I am doing a research project. So I read your research projects on Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, and I wanted to show you that there are actually 3 steps to researching. So the first step is to read the text. The second step is to take notes, and then the third step is to use your notes to write your research project. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what that looks like. I'm using the science text to do a short research on the Dead Sea. So I'm using this article here in your science book on page 226. So I also have next to me my notebook because I am going to use this to take notes. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read. So it says the Dead Sea is one of the smallest seas in the world, less than 8.5 kilometers or 50 miles long, ranging from 3.2 kilometers, 2 miles, to 17.7 kilometers or 11 miles wide. Located between Jordan and Israel and Southwest Asia, the Dead Sea is surrounded by land. The name Dead Sea is a gentle translation from its Hebrew name, Yam HaMeved, which literally means killer sea. At 672.7 kilometers or 418 miles below sea level, the Dead Sea has the lowest water surface of the world. Okay, when I go to take my notes, I want to make sure that I'm not copying down entire sentences, okay? When you copy entire sentences, that's called plagiarism, and it's actually not allowed to copy somebody else's work and not use quotation marks. So I'm going to title my note page as the Dead Sea, and I am going to use bullet points without using full sentences. So it said it was the smallest sea. It said that it was 50 miles long. And I'm just going to use the miles instead of the kilometers. I know in Hungary you guys probably use kilometers, so but in this case I'm just going to use miles. So 50 miles long, and then to 11 miles wide. So it actually said 2 to 11 miles wide, so I'm going to write 2 to 11 miles wide. But notice I'm not using full sentences here, okay? I'm going to say that the Hebrew name is Yam HaMeved, and I'm going to write an equal sign, and I'm going to write killer sea, okay, which is what I got from the text. I don't want to use the exact words because, again, that's going to be copying. That says, which literally means killer sea. So I'm not going to put that part because that's not my words, okay? The Dead Sea is the saltiest body of water in the world. The Jordan River and some smaller streams feed the surface of the Dead Sea. The fresh water from these sources quickly evaporated in the hot desert climate. At the surface, the water is the least salty. As the water gets deeper, it gets much saltier. At about 40 meters deep, the Dead Sea is about 10 times salty as the oceans. Deeper, below 90 meters, the sea is completely saturated. The water at this point cannot hold any more salt. The salt settles in drifts at the bottom of the sea. Okay, so now I'm going to go over, so it's the saltiest body. So I'm going to write, so it's the killer sea, and I'm going to write that it's the saltiest in world. Again, I'm not going to use full sentences for my note page. I'm only going to use partial sentences. I'm going to say that the top is the least salty, and 40 meters deep. It is 10 times salty as ocean. And at 90 meters deep, it says the salt settles on bottom. Okay. Now, it says no rivers or streams lead out of the Dead Sea to the sea, with no way for the water to escape. It just becomes saltier and saltier. How? The fresh water that feeds into it settles on the surface and quickly evaporates, leaving behind minerals. These minerals sink into the water below, increasing the concentration of salt in the water. No animals live in or around the Dead Sea. The environment is too harsh. A few bacteria and algae have adapted to its severe conditions. Fish that accidentally swim into the sea from the Jordan River or other streams die instantly. Their bodies become covered in salt crystals and they wash upon the shore. The fish become part of the white, salt-covered landscape that surrounds the sea. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to write no animals or fish. And I'm going to write they die instantly, and it's from too much salt. Okay. The concentration of salt in the Dead Sea is so high that the water is much denser than ocean or fresh water. This allows humans to simply float on the surface, at the surface like corks. Because of the dense water, it is actually difficult to swim in the sea. Most people who visit simply lie back in the water, float around, and read. People with arthritis and skin problems also visit the Dead Sea. The sea water helps them feel better. And here's a picture of a person floating in the Dead Sea without anything, and looks like she's reading. Okay, so I'm gonna write last couple of thoughts here. People float on top and good for skin. Okay, now I'm going to take my notes and I'm going to use just my notes to create a summary about the Dead Sea. I'm going to see here I am closing the book and I'm going to use just my notes to write my summary. Okay, here is my finished summary. The Dead Sea is the smallest sea. It is only 50 miles long and only 2 to 5 miles wide. This sea is the saltiest in the world. It is so salty, its Hebrew name is Yam HaMeved, which means killer sea. Animals and fish can't even live here, only some algae and bacteria. I remembered that from when I was reading. People visit from around the world to float on top. The sea is also great for their skin. The Dead Sea is a strange and wonderful sea. Now you can see that I added a conclusion at the bottom with a opinion. So I added an opinion that matches up with what I wrote, how it's strange and wonderful. So it's strange because animals and fish can't live there, and it's wonderful because it's good for people's skin. So you never want to read something and then copy it down into your notebook because, again, you're gonna end up with information that is not yours. In fact, when I pulled exact text out, I used quotation marks. So this text I pulled directly out of the book, Yam HaMeved, which means killer sea. This was pulled directly out of the book, so I used quotation marks here. So this week, when you read and take notes, I want to see, when you take notes, I want you to use notes that do not have full sentences. And then next week we'll be using those notes to write your own summaries on some science and history topics. Have a great week!